Okay, so let us continue with 8.5 and one more to go and I am done with this video presentations. Okay, section 8.5 using equations to solve application problems. So this should be the best part of our lesson because we know how to apply the lessons that we have tackled into real life situations. So let's have section 8.5 using equations to solve application problems. Let me check if I'm really recording. Okay, so the objectives of these sections are section R, solve application problems to find one unknown, and number 2, solve application problems to find two unknowns. So throughout this course, we have used the steps analyze, form, solve, state, and check as a strategy to solve application problems. Now that you have had an introduction to algebra, we can modify that strategy and make use of your newly learned skills. Kadtong sa section 8.4. Okay, so now let's start with objective number 1. Solve application problems to find one unknown. So, strategy for problem solving. Analyze the problem. Next, form an equation. How to analyze the problem? By reading it carefully to understand the given facts. What information is given? What are you asked to find? What vocabulary is given? And often, a diagram or table will help you visualize the facts of the problem. Second is to form an equation. So what equation can I make in order to solve the problem? So by picking a variable to represent the numerical value to be found. Then express all other unknown quantities as expressions involving that variable. So keywords or phrases can be helpful. Finally, translate the words to the problem into an equation. The next step, number 3, solve the equation. Number 4, state the conclusion clearly. That is why, class, your final answer should not be the number alone. Okay? You should state the conclusion in a sentence form. Be sure to include the units such as feet, seconds, or pounds in your answer. Finally, step number 5, check the result using the original wording of the problem, not the equation that was formed in step 2 from the words. It can also be helpful that you have initial estimate of the value that you are looking for so that you can have another area where you can check your answer. Okay, so the steps are analyze the problem, form an equation, solve the equation, state the conclusion, and check the result. Take note, number 3, solve the equation. It's not when you solve the equation, it's not the end of the world. I mean, it's not the final step in the problem solving process. You need to state the conclusion clearly for the next step and check if the result is really the original word, the result is really the the solution. Ma'am, nag-record pa ko niya na lang. Wala na didto. Ah, atuon lang tika. Sige. Dara lang sa ma'am, nag-record pa ko. Okay, let's continue. Example number 1. So, class, I would like to tell you that it's not only us in the Philippines that having challenges or difficulties when it comes to worded problem solving. It's a universal problem. But those who are really doing well in analyzing situations, problems, especially real life problems, those who can understand the equation, are those who can understand the equation. And therefore, you need to apply your basic English skills, reading comprehension. Huh? So, example number one, and then you will also solve self-check number one. Example number one, systems analysis. A company's telephone use would have to increase by 350 calls per hour before the system would reach the maximum capacity of 1,500 calls per hour. Currently, how many calls are being made each hour on the system? Okay, analyze the first step. If the number of calls increases by 350, the system will reach capacity. Okay, so to increase by 350 calls. So take note of the keywords that you can find in the original paragraph, ha? Kani, original problem. Increase by 350. The maximum capacity of the system is 1,500 calls per hour. That means the ceiling, and it can be uh, the ones that we will write at the right side. It can be. And the real problem is how many calls are currently being made each hour. You need to take this note. You take note of the question. Unlike an arithmetic approach, you do not have to determine whether to add, subtract, multiply, or divide at this stage. Simply translate the words of the problem to mathematical symbols to form an equation that describes the situation, then solve the equation. So, this is not a mathematical arithmetic approach na i-identify dayo na to kung increase, or kung i-add, i-subtract, multiply, or i-divide. Just simply, unsa ang ingon diri translate the words of the problem into mathematical symbols so that you can form an equation. So, the second step is form. Let n the number of calls currently being made each hour. And to form an equation involving n, we look for a keyword or phrase in the problem. So, what is the key phrase in the first? Increase by 350. If we translate this word increase, that means addition. So the key phrase tells us to add 350 to the current number of calls, which is we are representing through the variable n. That is to obtain an expression for the maximum capacity of the system. Now we translate the words of the problem into an equation. So the current number of calls per hour is n, increased by, that is plus 350, equals the maximum capacity of the system is 1,500. So solve. N plus 350 equals 1,500. So, since this is addition, we need to remove 350 from both sides. So, 350 minus 350 and 1,500 minus 350. And we get N, sorry, N is equal to 1,150. We do the subtraction. So, the next step is what? To state the conclusion. So, the conclusion would be currently 1,150 calls per hour are being made. So, you check dayon. So, kung imuhang 1,150 n plus 350, mahimo ba dyan siyang 1,500? So, the result, 1,150 checks, and therefore it's a solution. Now let's go read the self-check number one. Apartment buildings. Owners of newly constructed apartment building would have to sell 34 more units before all of the 510 units were sold. How many of the apartment units have been sold to date? So these are simple problems that we can use to solve I where we can use algebraic equations. Okay? So I will leave you to solve self-check number one. Anyway, I will not grade that. Just check if you have done it correctly at the bottom of the discussion. Now, let's proceed with example number two. So, this section is hopefully shorter lang unta siya, but since we are dealing with different kinds of equations. That's why mudaghan ni siya. Bisag duha lang. Small businesses. So after we solve example 2, you do self-check number 2. Small businesses. Last year, a stylist lost 17 customers who moved away. If she now has 73 customers, how many did she have originally? Sayon na kaayo. Analyze, she lost 17 customers. Now, she has 73 customers. How many customers did she originally have? So you analyze, that's the given, those are the given, and what you need to find is the number of customers that she originally have. Now we need to form an equation that would represent the problem. So we can let C, the original number of customers from the letter here, C. To form an equation involving C, we look for a keyword or phrase in the problem. So, key phrase is moved away. So, sa una, maunta niyang number, but nibalhin ang 17 kabuok. So, when we translate that phrase, we get the subtraction. Now, we translate the words of the problem into an equation. The original number of customers, we set it to C minus 17 is the number of the customers she has now. Okay, so solve. C minus 17 equals 73. And so you need to add 17 to both sides to get C here. So C is equal to 90. State the conclusion. She originally had 90 customers. Then check. So 90 minus 17 is 73. If the result checks, then you get the correct answer. Okay? So let's read another self-check here. Gasoline storage. A tank currently one has contains 1,325 gallons of gasoline. If 450 gallons were pumped from the tank earlier, how many gallons did it originally contain? So, now you do self-check number 2. It's the same with the given example. Number 3, example number 3. Traffic fines. For speeding in a construction zone, a motorist had to pay a fine of $592. The violation occurred on a highway posted with signs like the one shown on the right. What would the fine have been if such signs were not posted? Okay? For speeding in a construction zone, a motorist had to pay a fine of $592. The violation occurred on a highway posted with signs like the one shown on the right. Traffic fines doubled in construction zone. What would the fine have been if such signs were not posted? Okay, so na naka-idea. For speeding, the motorist was fined 592. The fine was double what it would normally have been kung naa ka sa construction zone. What would the fine have been had the sign not posted? So, madouble siya kung naka sa construction zone. Pero kung wala, unsa de, pila unta de ay ito. Okay? So, form the equation. So, you let F to represent the fine, the amount that the fine would normally have been. To form an equation, we look for a keyword or phrase in the problem or analysis. So, double means multiply by 2. Now, we can translate the problem into an equation. So, 2 times the normal speeding is the new fine. So, 2 times F equals 592. The next step is to solve. So 2F equals 592. Therefore, the original fine, if you are not in the construction zone, is just 296. So 296, you state the conclusion. The fine would normally have been $296. Check. If the normal fine was $296 and we double it, we should get the new fine, which is 592. And the solution that you have found, check. So therefore, it's really a solution. So you solve self-check number 3, copy it, post the video, and answer self-check number 3. Let's proceed to another example. Fraction na siguro ni. Okay. Dili pa. Entertainment costs. You have another self-check here. Example number 4. A five-piece band worked on New Year's Eve. Five-piece band worked on New Year's Eve. If each player earned $120, what fee did the band charge? A five-piece band worked on New Year's Eve. If each player earned $120, what fee did the band charge? Okay. So yun naman, no? Okay. Yeah, there were 5 players in the band. Each player made $120. What fee did the band charge? Okay. So we can let F, the band's fee, to form the equation. Then we will look for keywords. So the key phrase there, divided into 5 equal parts, and that means division. So we can translate the problem into an equation by the band's fee, F, divided by 5, the number of players in the band, is each person's share, which is 120. So F divided by 5 equals 120. And yeah, because this is a fraction, you need to multiplication property of equality. So 5 cancel 5 and 5, so you get F. 5 times 120 is 600. So state the band's fee was $600. Kaya tag 120 man sila kada isa, so 600 ilang original band fee, $600. Okay? So you can also check on that here. Division and result 600 checks. And go back to the unsa ganito self-check. Classical music. A woodwind quartet was hired to play at an art exhibit. So quartet, pila na kabuok? If each member made $85 for the performance, what fee did the quartet charge? So pareha lang sila. Just show me your solution, step by step, analyze, form, solve, state, and check. Example number 5. So, volunteer service hours. To receive a degree in child development, students at one college must complete 135 hours of volunteer service by working 3-hour shifts at a local preschool. Let me check the icon nag-record pa ko. Okay. If a student has already volunteered 87 hours, how many more 3-hour shifts must she work to meet the service requirement for her degree? So, to analyze, students must complete 135 hours of volunteer service. Students work 3-hour shifts. A student has already completed 87 hours of service. And how many more 3-hour shifts must she work? Okay, so service volunteer. After that, you do also service club. So I will not read this to shorten the time of this video. So to form, you find a variable to represent the number of shifts needed to complete the service requirement. In this, you use X, and then since each shift is 3 hours long, multiplying by 3 by the number of shifts will give the number of additional hours to the students needs to volunteer. So we can form now 87 plus 3 times the number of shift is 135. So 87 plus 3x equals 135. Unsa siya kailangan diri a class? Yeah, di ba? Reading comprehension. You should understand what you are reading and be able to translate it into equations. So 87 plus 3x, you know the process already, and you get x equals 16. Okay? And then, after that, you state the student needs to complete 16 more 3-hour shifts for volunteer service. So, klaruhon jud ninyo inyong conclusion because sometimes, bisag naka-arrive ka ani, pero wala ka kasabot kung unsa to nga number, it doesn't have meaning anymore. Okay? So, you should do and state the conclusion. Then, you check. So, this is the total number of hours needed. So, the result 16 checks, and therefore, your answer is correct that there are 16 more 3-hour shifts of volunteer service that the student needs. Okay, you do self-check number 6. And let's do example number 6. Let's read lang for a quick daghan na siyag expression. Okay? In return for her services, an attorney and her client split the jury's cash award equally. Oh, after paying her assistant $1,000, the attorney ended up making $10,000 from the case. What was the amount of the award? Oh, split the jury award equally. So na hint, no? So analyze. The attorney and client split the award equally, but the attorney gave his assistant with $1,000, and then ang nabili na lang siya sa $10,000. So, what was the amount of the award? So, by just understanding this, I guess $22,000. No, tunga sila $11. Kitagaan niya iyahang secretary, 10,000 na lang na yung nabilin. Let me check kung correct ba ko. Okay, so let X be the amount of the award. Then we have two key phrases in the problem as form an equation. Help us, okay? Key phrase, split the award equally. So that is divide by 2. Duha lang man sila. Paying her assistant 1,000. That means gisubtrakan iyahang share with 1,000. Now let's try to translate the words of the problem into an equation. Let X the amount of the award. So X divided by 2 minus 1,000 equals 10,000. Okay, so ang X, original award, gidivide nilang duha sa iyang kliyente, gitagaan niya iyang secretary, ang nabilin sa iyaha is 10,000. So, follow what you have learned from the previous. This is now the equation. And so, the answer is X equals, ang kato ako ang 22,000, estimate to siya class ha. You still need to solve it. Estimate kay para na kay ano. So, kung mamali lang anong 22,000, mali di akong pagsabot. So, mupod na siya benefit kung maghimo kag estimate ni mo daan nga answer. So, state the amount of the award that was 22,000. Check if the award of 22,000 is split in half. The attorney share is 11,000. And if 1,000 is paid to her assistant, we subtract to get 10,000. So, 11,000 minus 1,000, 10,000. So 22,000 checks. By the way, class, did you see? Did you observe the difference with how we check on this? Okay? Dili ta mag-check diri based sa original equation, but we will check based on the problem given. Kung realistic ba siya. Mo nang dili diri true nga statement. Dili siya true, but checks. Okay? So, that means tama imong answer. Now, you do self-check number 6, yard sale. So, ikaw nalay basa ani, you pause this part and then answer it. Next, let's have number 2, solve application problems to find two unknowns. So, duha na inyong isolve na variable. So, in solving application problems, we usually let the variable stand for the quantity we are asked to find. In the next two examples, each problem contains a second unknown quantity. We will look for a keyword or phrase in the problem to help us describe it using an algebraic expression. So, nganong lisod og nindot ang math major class? When we deal with mathematical problems like worded problem, we are not only practicing our English competency, but also we are doing 21st century skill critical thinking. Okay? So you have now already communication skills will be enhanced because you will be able to think critically to understand the basic phrases and the sentence structure of the problem, and then you solve it. Okay, so let's have example number 7. Duha na lang daw ka example. Civil service. A candidate for a position with the FBI scored 12 points higher on the written part of the civil service exam than she did on her interview. In her combined score, If her combined score was 92, what were her scores on the interview and on the written part of the exam? So, duha na ka variable ang unknown. Here, scores of the interview and the written part. So, she scored 12 points higher on the written part than of the interview. Her combined score was 92. So, what was her scores on the interview and on the written part? So, form. So let X her score in the interview. And then the second unknown quantity, her score on the written part of the exam. We look for a key phrase to help us decide how to represent that score using an algebraic expression. So it was said 12 points higher on the written part than on the interview. So add 12 points to the interview score. So since you are using X as your interview score, you add 12 to that variable to get your written part score. Okay? So her score on the written part is the interview plus 12. Now we can translate the problem into mathematical equation using the words in the problem. So the score on the interview is X plus the score on the written part is X plus 12 is the overall score X plus 12 equals 92. So combine like terms, you have 2x plus 12 equals 92. So 2x plus 12, you need to remove 12 from both sides to retain the variable on the left side. Do the subtraction to get 80. Then division property of equality, you get x equals 40. Now to check, di pa dahil to check, you state your to find the second unknown, kanina imuhang gamiton ang x plus 12. So x plus 12 is equal to 40 plus 12, 52. Therefore, iyahang first score pila ang X. So, 40, ihang score sa interview. Tapos, ang 52, score po na niya sa written part. So, state, her score in the interview was 40 and her score on the written part was 52. To check, dapat silang duha, when you combine together, is equal to 42. Since the result is really 92, then 40 and 50 check. Ha? So, lahi atong pagka-checking here. So, your statement of the conclusion is correct. So, nakita ninyo kung giyon sa to siya, there are many different kinds of problems in algebra where you can use this same process. Okay, let's proceed to the last example. I guess this is the last. I'll go back to self-check number 7 in order for you to understand more of that. Playgrounds. After receiving a donation of 400 feet of chain link fencing, the staff of a preschool decided to use it to enclose a playground that is rectangular. Find the length and the width of the playground if the length is 3 times the width. So the given is perimeter is 400 feet. Okay, kani siya perimeter. Link fencing, that means perimeter kaning line diri asa sa imuhang rectangle. The length is 3 times as long as the width. So the length is 3 times longer or as long as the width. What is the length and what is the width of the rectangle? So nanamoy hint. The perimeter. Okay? So, we will let W. Kung sometimes class, kailangan na to ang mga basic formula ha sa parehas ani na problem. So, let W be the width of the playground and the second unknown quantity, the length ay the width ganina ang W, and the length will be represented not by another variable but in relation to the previous variable that we use. Kung minsan class maglisod tag solve ani kay lahi ato ang variable sa width, lahi pud ang variable sa length. But in solving problems like this, you should make your second variable in relation to. So the same ang variable na imuhang gamiton in relation to the first variable. So we look for a key phrase to help us decide how to represent it using an algebraic expression. So key phrase, length 3 times the width. Translation, multiply width by 3. So we have 3W for the length of the playground. Now remember, the formula of the perimeter of a rectangle is P equals 2L plus 2W. So we can write the form 2 times the length of the playground, which is 3W, plus 2 times the width of the playground, which is W, is equal the perimeter, which is 400. Then you apply what we have learned from the previous section using property of equality, simplifying, and the combination of the properties of equality. So 2 times 3 is 6 plus 2W, we have 400. Combine like terms, we have 8W. Divide each term with the coefficient of W, then you get W, which is 50. You check, 3W is 50, so 150. Not check, but you find the other value. So, ang width niya, 50, and since times 3 man ang length sa width, so we have the length, which is 150. So, state the width of the playground is 50 feet and the length is 150 feet. So if you add them together, 2 times 150 plus 2 times 50 equals 300 plus 100 equals 400. Also, the length, 150 feet, is 3 times the width, 50 feet. The results, check. And therefore, your solution is really correct. Okay? 'Di ba interesting? 'Di ba nice? Nice makahibalo, no? So mo nang ako adik ko mag-eskwela class. Di siguro kay ko nawala na akong adik pagka-teacher. Karon nga nag-eskwela ko, no, grabe akong ano po. So, yeah, I love to learn. Crime scene. So, self-check number 8, post the video, copy this one, and then answer. Okay, so sa answer sa mga self-check, it doesn't have to be the same word for word, but at least you have the right units and the correct answer. So for number 1, 476 units have been sold. You can post this here and then check your answer. If you have wrong answers, go over your solution, check what you have made wrong, and then correct the wrongs. Okay? Naman tayo permitted chance to correct our mistake and to be forgiven kung di na gyud nato kaya i-correct. Okay? So, thank you very much. Thank you for watching. 8.5, I will be down to one section na lang dyan. And hopefully, I can finish this really this time. I have a class at 7 o'clock tonight. So, maybe tomorrow morning or yeah, later tonight. God bless you, everyone. Thank you very much. And I'm so excited to see you in your higher mathematics doing well because you have done well for the basics. Okay? So, thank you very much.